Jarin Blaschke and Craig Lathrop, cinematographer and production designer for Nosferatu, Robert Eggers' great film, and Oscar nominees. Jarin, this is your second nomination, and Craig, your first, right? So I guess just first of all, how did it feel to get nominated? And then I guess specifically for this film, knowing how long it's been germinating in Robert's head, and obviously you guys have worked with him for so many years. So I guess like what did it mean to have these nominations? I guess this year, Sharon, you can go first if you want.
You want to start?
Um, I mean, I don't. I mean, what do you say to that?
Yeah,
Yeah. To me, it was surreal. I think that would be the word,
hmm.
you know. Um, it's an honor and very, very exciting, but it's not really what we were, we're trying to make a good movie.
Yeah, you
It,
just gotta.
and all of this is sort of this other thing that just happened to me.
Yeah,
yeah,
but yeah, it's still it's yeah. Of course, it's incredible to be recognized, but yeah, you just gotta stay focused on the work.
yeah.
So
So like I said, you guys have worked with Robert for so long. I guess and you were friends with him too in like real life, obviously. So I guess how, like, how is that? I guess just how has your creative partnership with him evolved from the first films to now? And like I don't know if you would even. It's hard to say like. I don't even want to say it's like a peak, but obviously this is like the response to this film has been bigger than any of the other films so far. Like broadly biggest audience certainly. I guess like how has your creative partnership then evolved with him throughout this time? Jaron, you want to go?
Friend started well before me.
Yes, I know.
He did all the shorts.
yeah,
Hmm.
I did two shorts, and then and
Yeah,
then neither of us were working. We're just kind of in our late
right,
20s, like doing a short film here and there. And I remember Rob had this whole like carpentry kit like in his kitchen, because he's doing design jobs and whatever, was trying to get by. But yeah, to then and then we were just like hanging out, for 5 years or
right.
more before the witch, and then that was like a miracle. It's just kind of one miracle after another, really. As far as I can tell.
I feel that way. And as far as you saying peak, I would say that I feel that we've grown every film
Right.
together as a group. Um, uh, Not that a lot of that wasn't there from the very beginning, but yeah. So if you're
Yeah.
saying it, we're peaking right now. I don't. I hope that we're not peaking,
Well, yeah,
but
that's what I mean. Like it's not a peak, right? It's like
right.
it's a constant ascent, right? I guess that's the better
All
way to put
downhill
it.
from here.
Do you have like
Yeah,
yeah,
you want to you want to build off of it. It's like it's almost like you just see you get away with something, and just like for me, it's like I feel like a mischievous child. Like, oh well, maybe like if I got away with that, then maybe I can really push it this time. And then like the Northman, when we had some resources, just being able to like I had really ideas going back to film school, really, just like some curiosities, like what have I tried this or what have I tried that, and then I had a little bit more knowledge to implement them. So um, yeah, it's just trying to get away with shit with every movie.
it feels like you're doing it though. And that's the thing I love about like your films because it just feels like yeah, you're like I don't know, you don't really like the scale of this film is so big and obviously like I said like it's like a it's a mainstream movie in terms of like the way it's been received by audiences, I would say, but like it's not like like you're doing like you're able to keep I think you're keeping true to like what like the ethos is from those earlier films to now, right? Even as the scale is getting bigger, I guess I would say, as a viewer, at least that's what it feels
Yeah,
like.
trying. Yeah, and it's like almost like can we block scenes in a $90 million movie? Like can we block them in this ridiculous way? And we did.
Right.
So I mean, does the movie feel like does Nosferatu feel bigger to you than the Northman in some ways?
And yeah, in a lot of ways, it feels bigger. I mean, it's funny because the studio kept on telling me this is a smaller film,
Right.
and I said, "Well, not so much for the art department." Um, so yeah, it was bigger for sure.
And there's just so much variety too, as far as sets for you
Yeah,
and like just looks for me. Just like it's just fun when you can move sets often and do something fresh and be given new spaces every couple days
yeah. I
on
mean,
the
on the
average.
Northman, it's funny because we had
Just,
we had a
yeah,
lot of interesting sets in the first act, and
Mhm.
then not that the rest of it weren't interesting, but they were the same.
yeah.
Like,
Well, this movie too also settles down after get it back from the castle, but still, it's like
yeah, but even then, I mean, we go
so
to the chapel and
yeah.
we have rats and we go to there's a lot.
It's
It's a
incredible. I guess how do you like in terms of you guys working together? Obviously, like you both have obviously probably specific needs for what you need and what the film needs, but obviously like you're working so closely, right? And especially in a film like this, it feels like you would need to. So I guess like when does your like where do you start in terms of that collaboration between you guys and like trying to figure out
Right
like
away.
right
Yeah,
away? And
we
okay.
start right away. I mean, I usually will design a set and then I'll talk with Rob about it and if he's on board, Jarin will have questions or comments I mean, ultimately, I'm trying to accommodate photography. We're trying to make pictures. So Jarin will have ideas for the angle or where he needs the light source. I try to anticipate those, but you can never anticipate them completely. And
Well, you know me well now, so you know you can. I think you can anticipate a bit, a bit. If you just take out one syllable after that, um, slurring my words. The yeah, but I think I come on pretty early. I'm on. I mean,
very
almost when
early.
you are.
Yeah,
And sometimes I'll have questions about sets you haven't designed yet. I mean, especially this
absolutely.
time because there was 60
Absolutely.
plus. So you
Absolutely.
know,
Almost always you have questions for sets I haven't. It
right.
seems like the set I
Just get
haven't got
myself in
to,
there.
that's the one you want to know about.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I know.
But that's just the way.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah, sorry. I was gonna say, Jared, for you, like when you're talking about like the like I guess when are you like where does your inspiration come from, I guess, in terms of like framing things and how it's gonna look, I guess. Like obviously like your work is so acclaimed and for good reason, but I guess like when are you getting the like work like are you immediate like are you thinking of things even before like you're getting the script or like how do you like visualize like what this will look like in terms of like where you're starting, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, before the script, I mean, in this case, the script's been around for so
Right.
long, it
Right.
may not, it may apply less, but certainly with Rob in general, you know, I'm thinking about textures and colors before there is a script sometimes, you know, like the lighthouse, you know, I knew about the lighthouse for since maybe before the witch, actually, you know, it's just like an idea, you know, I had no idea. It's just, I know it's two people cooped up in a lighthouse station and, you know, okay, well, you know, Rob wanted black and white. What does that mean? And you know, all this, you know, I don't know how long it was before the whole ortho, you know, texture came in.
Hmm.
But yeah, but in this case, yeah, textures first, and then it's like, well, and then it's kind of like thematically what should the shot structure be? I mean, I know we're thinking about scene, you know, I personally was thinking about scene one pretty damn early on, you know, years before there was a set. So, but yeah, and I kind of had one structure, and then we went to something a little more conventional, and then went back out to a oneer, and then at that
Yeah.
point, Craig's there, and we can talk it through. So
Right.
that scene in particular had a lot of versions over the
Hmm.
years.
You mentioned the Wonders too, I guess, in terms of like that's such a obviously like a foundational thing, I think, to your work and like the films as well. I guess for Craig, for you as a production designer, like, is there does that change knowing that that's like that there are going to be Wonders and stuff? Does that change anything you're doing at all in your approach, or do you have like does it? I mean, I'm sure you're already like incredibly diligent, but do you even have to be more diligent? I guess like how does that change your approach at all?
Well, I mean, in the back of your mind, you're always thinking about what shots might be. I mean, I never quite get it right, but I'm often close. Um, so it doesn't change a lot in terms of the approach when I'm starting to design it. But the idea is once we know what the shot is, I start to make the set accommodate it.
Okay.
Um, Especially if there's sets that have to have pieces that are moving in and out as the scene is going on. That is very, very shot specific. And
Mhm.
so once Jarin like lets me know what he's thinking and Rob signs off on everything, we'll make the sets dance so that
Yeah, and also it's like, you know, we tend to use a certain focal length, so they're all kind of
yeah.
designed around what
Mhm.
fits in a 35 millimeter
Got it.
lens. Like you
Right.
build a set and then you choose a lens
Yeah.
to accommodate. So a couple times where it's like the mausoleum or whatever, it's like, you know, it's just more narrow and longer because we're
Yeah.
not using a wide lens necessarily, we're
Right.
using medium wide. So therefore you need to see the walls to bring them in, but you need the depth to like play the scene, you know.
Right.
So
But I mean, you
things like
guys
that.
like aspect ratio, I usually know
Yeah.
right away. Often Rob has it right in the script.
Yep.
And I don't always know the lenses that you're going to use, but I know fairly well the lenses that you won't use.
Yeah, it's just a 35 mil, maybe a
Yeah.
28, and then yeah, and
The
then
Witch was a 32.
yeah, well, it's yeah, they're vintage lenses, so you know we do the math and
Right.
we have like a translucent sheet with like some lines on it to show what the lens sees. So when a plan comes in, then
Yeah.
we'll go over it together. Like, oh, we want this sort of proscenium here. Then we'll check it on
Yeah.
the plan to see that make sure it fits. And then I
Yeah.
don't know.
But that's great for me because we work together so often that I also can anticipate that.
Right.
So, if it's a set that we want to, that I feel like we all feel that it needs to be a little bit more claustrophobic. How big the set needs to be if I want to see three walls, a ceiling, and a floor
Right.
shot when you walk in,
Right.
which is small. Ask them all about the White House.
Well, the size. I was thinking of this one too in terms of size because Orlok is obviously so big, right? Like I think is he like Bill as a character is I guess 6'7" maybe is that right or like in that range was that right with the shoes even?
As a character, no, I mean, as
Well,
a
like Bill
human
Skarsgård, like
or as Orlok?
what's that?
As a human or in real life
No,
or Orlok?
no, not as a human, but I think with like and not as a human, but
Could
as
be
a
the shoes.
character.
Yeah, I mean,
Certainly with a hat.
Linda had these fabulous shoes with these
Right.
red steel heels that were probably 3.5, 4 inches tall.
Yeah, that are either in silhouette or we're going up a staircase and
So
desaturating.
when you're dealing with a character like that's so much bigger than obviously like than the other like I guess how do you like it may sound so stupid but I was wondering this watching the movie I was like how do you accommodate the sides of the character to make it feel like it does in the film like just natural I don't know did you need to do anything to accommodate that I guess in terms of the production design or the way you guys are working together.
Well, did you do anything specific for Orlok
I mean, I
necessarily?
I think it was helpful that he was so tall. Usually, certainly early on, we were trying to obscure him, just get his head out of frame and just have this
Right.
sort of foreground looming torso. When he first comes to dinner at Orlok's, Shea Orlok,
Hmm.
and so yeah, I think if anything, it helped. And generally, yeah, if you had a wide, the 166 made it a little bit easier anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, I was never like, got to back the camera up,
Yeah, that's what so we're do great. You have to do anything different with the sets, I guess.
No,
Right.
not necessarily for Orlok. I mean, I certainly knew how big he was, and so when we were looking at the hallways, I definitely had that silhouette in mind. But other sets I have, I mean, an example would probably be actually Hutter when he
Mhm.
get the Romanian inn. Um, I got all the actors' heights, and I wanted to make sure that everybody could walk under those beams except for Hutter. So
Nice.
um, he had to duck his head every time he was walking through there, and that was very deliberate. I just wanted to make sure that he felt uncomfortable.
Right.
Another way to make him feel
I-
uncomfortable in that space.
It's a
That's
good
really
story.
cool. I love you mentioned before, like obviously like the main room, I guess for the or what did you, Jaron? You called it something. I've already blanked what it was, but the main room where we're
He called it Shea Orlock, but
Shea
that was
Warlock,
a great
great,
hall.
fantastic. The great, like I guess like that whole design is so great, and I guess like it's obviously such a key scene in the film. And I guess can you talk a little about like what went into designing that and how you worked together to make sure the lighting was right? I just found all of that such a like it's so
Honestly,
great having so early in the
one
film.
of the
Yeah.
main things was trying to figure out where to place the fireplace.
Okay.
And so I had
That's
a
early
couple,
on. Yeah, that's the
yeah,
first thing.
early on. So I had that in a couple of different spots, but once Jarin knew what the shot was going to be, we wanted it behind Orlok so that we couldn't. It was part of the moment where we're trying to obscure Orlok still, and so that was one.
Yeah. It's the
Um,
one. Yeah, it's like that. It's like,
and then the geometry, there was a
yeah.
lot of playing around. It was all there from the very beginning, but honestly, a couple of inches here, a couple of inches there, so that when the camera came up the stairs, it was very important to Jaron. I'm sure he'll tell you this, to go straight in with the camera and all the way through that one hallway into the Great Hall, and then
Yeah, the doors are aligned to where,
Mhm.
the camera's moving and it just lands on, a reveal of the Great Hall, at least that left portion of it
Mhm.
to see that Orlok's not there. So yeah, I think,
yeah,
within inches. And then you have this, you're on a kind of a stabilized remote head, which is this giant thing. Camera's this big, but actually it's mounted on this thing that's this big. That's like scraping the edges of the doors, because I'm sure the
yeah,
doors need to look kind of tight
yeah,
anyway, and be gothic, but then you still have to accommodate this
Hmm.
fucking camera mount. Um,
yeah.
yeah, and just because it was just it's such an important sequence, to introduce Orlok, so it needed this sort of uncanny and omniscient
Hmm.
feel to the camera work. So yeah, it was a little bit of a stickler as far as just landing that straight
Right.
line.
It was important, though.
Yeah.
It was very important.
Well, yeah, right. It's like you're saying, it's like a foundational probably to the storytelling, I guess, as well, right? Like into what we're watching as audiences. Do you like Jaron, when I Beyond World, obviously like Lily Rose Depp is I think amazing in this film, like, and I think her physicality is so amazing. I know that's like all her, and like I guess like just that was another thing I was like, like how do you capture that or make sure that that's getting like what she's doing is coming across, and obviously like working what she's doing is working with what your vision for the film was, I guess, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff I mean, almost all the film is kind of boarded before the actors get there, and then the
Right.
rehearsals are like, they're not giving too much; they're saving it for when we're shooting. But it's really just to get them to become familiar with the blocking and make it second nature for the most part. But then there is stuff that you just have to see them do it, like like when in the script it just has a fit basically. Well, what does that mean? So then we work with Marie Gabrielle, the movement coordinator, and and Lily Rose, and figure out what are these moves, and then because I don't know where to put the camera until I know,
Right.
how big or small, is it contained? Is it big? What's the shape that we want to show? So that dictates the angle, and then we can have a conversation like, well, all right, so these are the moves you want to have in this, possession basically, and and then I might come back with like, what did you move this piece here because that makes sort of a linear progression with the camera,
Right.
it becomes a dialogue. So yeah, that actually happens in rehearsal,
Okay.
which is 2 weeks before shooting,
Wow.
or there's rehearsals while we're shooting other stuff, but we haven't gotten to it yet, and then we're polishing.
And then Craig, on you for like
Came up
those,
in
yeah.
Uber.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
For Craig, for you in those scenes too, I guess, like how are you like does knowing does knowing that she's going to be doing so much physically demanding stuff change anything you're doing with the sets in those scenes at all?
Not
Not
really.
really. Okay.
Really, I mean, if there's something that needs to be accommodated, like that shot that we just talked
Yeah.
about where the camera came, and so there was a moment there where the walls needed to move out of the way during this the scene, but it had more to
Oh dear.
do with sorry about that.
No, it's fine. You're fine.
It had it had more to do with accommodating the blocking and the camera movement
Okay.
than
Right.
Lily's performance in particular.
Yeah, like what kind of camera support, and
Yeah.
is it a crane, or is it just an offset on a dolly, or whatever, and then I gotta do.
Yeah.
And there's like little technical things, like when the wall moves away, obviously that side goes black, which
Right.
it shouldn't, because there's a wall there. There'd be some natural bounce off the wall, so I had to put this big bounce to make them, behind the wall, so it opens up and there's just like a little bit of room tone, or what would be the equivalent of the light bouncing off the wall, so that he has to accommodate that sort of space, and on and on. So
And
it's
then
fun.
yeah, I was wondering this too in the finale, obviously, or in the last, like when they consummate their very toxic and fucked up relationship, I guess, like that we end the film with like the different, like obviously daybreak and all these. Does like so in terms of the lighting and the sets there, like how did you guys kind of work together to make sure that like final moment was so separate from maybe not separate, but obviously different from what we've seen previously in terms of like the look of it and the way it works. And I guess did that change anything for the
For,
sets or anything? Yeah.
for me, I gave Jarin a set with a couple of windows where he liked them, and I let him do all the heavy lifting on this.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's also, and I'll have a just request as far as how much space outside the windows, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, how old is Bernadotte Studios? It's like
It
it's
was
like
built in
Nazi
the
era, to
30s.
be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually. So it's we basically took it over, but it's like there are some constraints because, again,
Well, to be
67.
honest with you, we started off with I requested three of the larger studios um, based on requests from the production in terms
Mhm.
of how many sets we'd be building and how much we'd be doing on location. By the time we finished, we built a lot more sets, and the studios were much tighter than they
Right.
probably should have been. We should have had another stage,
Hmm.
but by the time we got to knowing that we needed another stage, there were no more available.
Wow.
So that's where we were.
Yeah,
So
and
there
it's
was a
just
little bit of like juggling sets in and out, and just a bit tighter than we
Right.
needed to
Well,
be.
like
So
knock cell, we thought we were going to use at that location, but then
yeah,
last minute it's like, you know what, we can't actually
we
do it
can't.
and light it there. So then that was like something else to just like toss in a stage that was already full, you know. So then you're
Yeah,
doing the jigsaw work. It's like, well, okay, if you want to
yeah,
light it through the window, then
yeah. Because it was easy enough for me to put the set in there,
Right.
but Jarin needs to light it, or it doesn't matter that it's there. So you need to have a little bit extra space.
right. And especially again with a certain lens, it needs to have a certain, it needs to be deep enough to then,
Right.
accommodate consistency of how it's lensed too.
The thing I love about, I mean, I just feel like the thing that separates this movie, I feel like from other films, not to besmirch any other films, but I just love that this feels like I keep referring to like it's like a real movie. It just feels like you know what I mean? Like it looks like you're in the like these sets are like very tactile. Everything is just feels so I don't know like handmade. I don't even know what the word. You know what I mean? It just feels like like it does. Like a lot of movies nowadays do not feel like this film or do not look like this film. And I guess like how I mean, it seems like it's probably very important to you both. But like, how important is it to make sure you're like like you're making sure it feels like that, like and like feels like all these like details are coming through for the audience where maybe they're used to seeing things that are flat and look like TV for lack of a better word, that kind of thing.
I mean, yeah. I mean, nothing's really accidental, I think there's just so much
Okay.
time
Yeah.
put into it, even before.
I mean, the idea of world building, which I think is
Yeah,
sort of what
that's so
you get
fun.
behind
Yes.
here. I
Yeah.
mean,
Good.
that's very important,
Yes.
and sort of stacking the details is sort of what helps to bring you there. That's one of the things, and
Yeah.
not just obviously with me in the material world, but also Jaron and lighting. That's
Yeah, all that stuff. It's like,
the,
yeah, it's like, well, my light, I know naturalistic lighting is kind of what's going on since, in this century really, but I try to just do the best, richest, most satisfying version of naturalistic lighting. It's like a very curated, I want, okay, so we need to have a sunrise or a sunset or portray dusk in a tableau, I'm just curating that to like,
Right.
the very best version that I can think of, like, oh, if I put the sun there, then I get this color wash in a certain way, and then it'll fall off to blue toward this corner. And, it's not like, yeah,
it's not an accident.
yeah, it's not available. Like, it's just
No.
sort of like, hopefully a curated,
Curated is good. I feel like not a lot of movies are as curated
reality.
anymore.
Yeah, but it's all artificial. It's just
Yeah.
sort of like,
Yeah.
and it's fun just to do the forensics of, when you have a certain quality of light coming in. It's like
Sure.
right now, we're in New York, there's a blue sky, and then it kind of turns into sort of warm brown trees of the park. And how does that come in a window in a certain way, and then you
Yeah.
study that and you try to portray it, and then you kind of curate it like, okay, well, this has a green tree. I'll just get rid of that because then I'll put green over here. You're just
Right.
really finessing it, but
It's a lot of work to hopefully you'll feel that you're just actually in these people's places in the perfect moment that just happened to be perfect. Um,
It's true.
yeah,
No, it does. I mean, like, I'm like, I believe all this stuff was like, how'd you get back there in the 1800s? This all feels very, very legitimate. Not to sound like a total dummy, but I'm like, it does feel like it just feels like it is like it was. I don't know. It just the way you guys make these movies is so exciting for I guess for a viewer. I find do you like Jaron? You mentioned before like the script has been around for a long time, obviously, and I know Robert's working on it. And for both of you, I guess like did did the anticipation or the expectation of what this project would be like did the result match that or exceed that for you?
I mean, I think I'll just, I imagine you agree, but it's like, I think we just have more craft than we've ever had. So yeah, for me, it's exceeded. I feel like, okay, this is kind of when I got out of film school or or when I was in film school, like this is kind of the level I hope that maybe, I could
Right.
achieve today, as I'm admiring other films. So, that's, yeah. And I have such breadth of looks, and, um, sets and locations, and it's just so rich, so yeah, it's very, very satisfying.
Yeah. Craig, you agree, I'm imagining.
I agree
Nothing,
completely.
you can't
I agree
say, yeah.
completely. I mean, in terms of exceeding my expectations, yes, I was really pleased with the way it turned out. And I'm sure that we could all find little moments, and no, I won't tell you about them, where I wish something could have been
Yeah, for
even
sure.
better.
You have to, 'cause that's how you grow. But as
Right.
far as expectations that you had, that we had when we first read it in 2015,
Right.
this is just a much better movie than if we made it then.
Yeah, that's really cool. And
Yeah.
I guess I know Robert has a lot of projects coming. I know the werewolf one was announced. I'm assuming you both or one well, you probably will be involved in that one based on past history. I don't know what you could say, but like what are you excited about? Like excited to
Yes.
go back to this world?
Okay. That's
Uh,
it.
yes, I'm excited.
Yes, period. Okay.
I mean,
Well,
we're still figuring it out because it's yeah, it's
It's very early days.
yeah, it's very early days, and but yet we're shooting, you know, relative for us relatively soon. So we're still talking about like what this movie looks like and feels like. So obviously
just
we can't even
right.
also just because we wouldn't, but also just because like we need to figure it out.
Yeah. Just generally then speaking, I guess, in terms of like how you guys work as creatives, not even thinking of like werewolf movie or anything. Like, are you constantly like in your life or just in general, like looking at things and being like, oh, I'm gonna hold this in my head as something that maybe I could use down the road or an idea that I have that won't work in this project or even the next project, maybe like 3 projects from now. Is that kind of how you guys think creatively?
I think that, you have to be observant. That's how you approach things in a very detailed ways, because you noticed things in life that were like, oh, look at that wall, look at the stone wall. I love that texture. That's something unique about it. Put it in your brain and you'll steal it later.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing with just observing light. I remember working for an antiquarian book dealer and just like the way that in New York and the way that, just like 2 p.m., the way the light just came in through his blinds, his wooden blinds, and that was like it just bounced off a couch, and it's just little dumb crap like that. Yeah, and then you get to put that in a movie somewhere.
I mean, yeah, that's really cool. Jaron and Craig, thank you so much for doing this. Obviously, Oscar nominees, congratulations again, and it's great chatting with you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.